All right, welcome in. A very happy Saturday to you. It is WagerTalk's last call. It is where we all come together collectively to try to figure out the best moves, the best bets to make on this packed Saturday across all the sports. I mean, let's see what we got here. NHL, NBA playoff action continues here today. We've got the one and only Carmine Bianco coming up, going to talk a little Edmonton, Dallas. Also, get his thoughts on what happened last night there. Another overtime special there between the Rangers and the Florida Panthers. Also, he'll talk a little MLS soccer on his mind here, so we'll dive into that. We've got WNBA action coming up. RC, Ronald Cabang will be here breaking down the fever for you, not to mention, of course, Game 3 between the Celtics and the Pacers, and just an absolutely loaded slate in Major League Baseball. All 15 teams ready to roll here today. Nobody better than Adam Trigger and BP Bryan Power if we have to, unless we run out of time, at which point he'll be the first cut. But he's here and available anyway, so we're excited, guys, and we're going to dive in right off the bat with RC, Ronald Cabang in the house. RC, happy Saturday to you here, my man. Before we dive into the Celtics and Pacers, you and I were on the NBA tip-off show yesterday. We were a little worried about the old, Doncic and Kyrie combo. What the hell would they do? Holy good crap. Boy, oh boy, Doncic is a wrecking ball, and he is wrecking Minnesota right now, RC. What did you think of that?
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, the way we broke down the game, we were right for a half, or at least I was. I was expecting the Minnesota defense to show up. They did in the first half. I expected the Minnesota offense to show up. They did in the first half. And in the second half, what you mentioned was, what's Luka and Kyrie going to do? And they showed up, especially Luka. And I mean, you could see, when he hit that shot over Gobert, like, his passion for, you could see the passion for the game and everything that comes with it after he hit that shot, and it was just amazing to see. Obviously I was on the wrong side of it, but I mean, this is the type of basketball you want to see day in and day out, when we watch the NBA. And I mean, I posted this a long time ago on Twitter. I was like, man, if we can get this type of ball during the regular season, like no load management or anything like this, and be able to see this type of ball, I mean, that would be amazing. But it was a great game to watch.
We've got they got a ant problem right now, don't he? He's looking a lot more like 22, RC, than he's looking like MJ. I mean, I appreciate the whole over the top, let's compare him to Michael Jordan, but he looked a lot more like a 22-year-old trying to figure his way through shit than he did, the GOAT of all time here. He certainly has the talent, but, man, he's going through it right now.
Yeah, I think one thing that we talked about yesterday was him being more aggressive and getting to the free throw line, and he did. But I think, look at Cat. I mean, but all these guys. I mean, we talked about Dallas's defense as well, and I mean that's one of the reasons why, I didn't mess with the Wolves team total. Remember, because I was like, the defense could show up from the Dallas side as well. Obviously, they still ended up getting over their team total, I believe, but. For the most part, they showed up in that second half and did what they needed to do. I think a lot of it, I mean, what they shoot 41% from the field, and majority of that came from, look at Cat and AE shooting less than 30% from the field. McDaniels is one guy that we talked about with that PRA to go under, right? And he went 1 for 6, huge under the PRA. And then we talked about Naz Reid and how he could impact the game. And, he showed up, right? We talked about the under for, I think we talked about his impact coming off of the bench and maybe his opportunities to limit Gobert's rebounding, right? I think Gobert went under his rebounding total. We talked about Naz Reid getting up to the 30-minute mark. He did that, and he showed up as well. So this impact of how he played in Game 2, it's going to be interesting to see how the rotation changes in Game 3 in Dallas. And then also you brought up the fact that we might see the big that shoots threes from Dallas. I forgot his name now. I can't forget top of the head.
Yeah.
But he comes back in game 3. Yeah.
Yep.
So if he comes back in game 3, that's also going to affect the total as well, just because he can stretch the floor.
Shout out to the chat room here. All-star cast here today, not only on the show, but in the chat room. Big shout out. Matt Roseman was at the Wolves game last night, and he's still drinking, apparently. Good for you, Matt. Outstanding there. That had to be quite depressing all day there. Big Daddy in the house. Sean Alvarez is here. Lord Farquaad back in action. Just got himself a Luka Doncic jersey. Good for you, Lord. Eric D in the house. This is going to be a fun show. And I want to send a special shout out here, Dan, because I think for the first time we've got somebody, Tom Bain in the house. First time catching a WagerTalk live stream. Well, what the hell took you so long, Tom? Welcome in, my man. We got some basketball to go over here today, and we're going to start with the all-important Game 3. And by the way, shout out to Derek Lively last night. Once again, RC getting it done for us last night. Unbelievable there. 14-9-2, plenty enough to go over that PRA. Now we're going to go through it, though, with the Celtics in a Game 3 and Indiana. Have you heard anything about Halliburton here today? Because I still can't get an update. It looks like it's going to be a game-time decision at this point. But, we talked about it, RC. How is he going in this game?
Yeah, it's tough. I think, we talked about Luka yesterday and how he would have probably sat out the last couple of weeks if it was a regular season game. And this is a situation where, the Pacers know they need Hallie, regardless of whether he's 100% or not. But the way that I looked at this was actually towards the under in this game 3. I think at this number currently, whether he sits or if he plays, I think it's a good number to take the under at. A couple of reasons why, right? I think when you look at these two teams here, they obviously went over. So I took I believe I had the over in game 1, but I know for sure I had Boston and over in game 2, right? So game 3 here, taking the under, a lot of it has to do with how these teams have done in the playoffs at home and on the road, like their current splits. Because if you look at the Celtics, they're actually dead last in pace and number 1 in defensive rating when on the road so far this season in the postseason. And that's it's a 4-game sample size. They obviously, they played some slower paced teams or whatever. But if you look at the Pacers at home, they're actually bottom 4 in pace during the playoffs and 6th in defensive rating. And if you look at those games again, from just a total number perspective, right? Not from an efficiency standpoint, but in 4 road games during the postseason, the Celtics are giving up 91.75 points per game. And then in 6 home games so far this postseason, the Pacers are giving up 104.5 points per game. Obviously, the offenses are a little bit different, right? Who they're facing and stuff like that. But for the most part, these teams tend to show up defensively during the postseason. And in a series when you're down 0-2, you're going to really focus in on the defensive side of the ball as well, and really focusing on every single possession, right? Like not turn over the ball and all these other pieces. Another reason why I like the under here is the Pacers struggle to get to the free throw line, and the Celtics are one of the best teams, especially when on the road, at limiting opponents to get to the free throw line. So those are those are limiting the free points that teams normally get, when they're on the road. So I think for me, the way to go in this one, like I said, whether it's Hallie's in or not, if Hallie's in, he's not 100%. If he's out, then you have guys like McConnell and Nemhard, who they do push the pace, but at the same time, the team is not as efficient offensively. And if you think about it, right, even after these 2 games that went over, obviously they went over in OT in game 1, but after these 2 games that went over, the total is coming down by 1.5, 2 points. And to me, that's a little bit telling to the fact that this should be the way to look at this game is to the under.
Yeah, it's kind of hard at this particular point. But we do know if he doesn't go, right, RC, we do know that if Halliburton doesn't go, and consensus is even if he goes, it was like Anunoby. Great. He made the first 5 buckets, allowed everyone to jump in on his under in the props, and then he sat his ass for the rest of the game because he was a liability. If that's the case here today, even if he goes, it feels like another one of these games. McConnell's going to step in for him. Are they live here? We know that the star players go down. It's been one of the most profitable angles in the NBA for a couple of years now. Star player sits a game. Everybody and their mother runs to bet the other side because he's not playing, and they end up not only covering but winning outright. Could we get that kind of game out of Indiana today if Hallie doesn't go?
I mean, I wouldn't run to the window and say money line on the Pacers, but I mean, from a numbers perspective, I mean, what is it, like 7.5, 8 now?
Yeah.
I would say that they could stick within the number. Like you said, it's been a profitable situation when a key player comes down for the opponent. For that team, everybody steps up. They know they have to step up, and the other team, the team that is looking at the a star player going down, they tend to let off the gas pedal, thinking they have an easy route. So I could see it happening. I could definitely see the Pacers covering the number. I definitely wouldn't run to the window on the money line though, because Celtics look like they're on a mission.
Yeah, listen, the truth is Indiana, don't kid yourself, very deep at that point guard spot. Nembhard can absolutely fill in. TJ McConnell, they're not as good without Halliburton, but they certainly have enough at that position to be able to keep this thing close at home, which they have notoriously played extremely well at. We know role players are always better at home, RC, and if he doesn't go, I would look at McConnell and Nembhard here, certainly in the prop market as well, right? I mean, two guys, somebody's got to make up those 14 to 16 points he gets a game. Those two guys would come to mind. I mean, there's only so much more Siakam can do here, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they're gonna try and play one-on-one ball with Siakam, I think the under is even better looking. But if they're gonna continue to play team ball, push the pace, and try to do that with McConnell and Nembhard, I would actually look towards maybe Nembhard, because I think one thing that I've seen with him, he's been able to stretch the floor, shoot the 3-ball well. McConnell, I think he's not as good of a 3-point shooter, so he can facilitate, push the pace, but he's more of like a mid-range guy and try to create off the dribble. I don't trust his three-point shooting at all, to be honest. I mean,
no.
You can tell that he's hesitant to take it. Nembhard would definitely he would shoot those. You've seen him do his step backs in the previous series and all that stuff too. So offensively, from a point standpoint, I think I would look towards Nembhard more than McConnell.
Going to be interesting to see if Jaylen Brown, what do we get for a round 2 here, RC? He feels like a guy, played out of his mind, 40 plus. It feels like everyone's going to run to the window and get Jaylen Brown props over. I don't know about that necessarily here. That's going to be an interesting one. 36.5 is his PRA in this matchup here today. So we do have a game 3 coming up 8:30 tonight there in Indiana, guys. Can they stay alive and get one back? Most people I know had either a sweep in mind or a 5-game series. Some people even took plus money at over 5.5 games in the series. We'll see if that's possible here tonight, but they got to win this one tonight. Shout out to a couple of shout outs in the chat before we dive in to the WNBA here today. Loaded card, 5 games across the board. RC going to break down who else. The Indiana Fever and the Aces coming up here. Want to recognize, though, Nembhard, Clinton looking at Nembhard over 12.5. Welcome in, Nembhard there. Also, shout out to Eric D, who's woken up with bourbon cottonmouth, and Titan CT is suggesting that he shave his tongue. So things are going swimmingly in the chat room once again here. Keith Landry in the house here. AOD wants to know what happened to the Pistons. Nothing new there. Desmond Castro, welcome in, my man. We've got plenty coming your way. And yes, What you guys don't hear and see right now is Carmine Bianco sweating out Man City, Man U. Still 2-0 there. He'll have something to say on that. Plus, the Edmonton Oilers getting ready to take on the Dallas Mavericks. And would they go up 2? Oh, boy, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Interesting game 2 coming up. He'll have it ready to roll. All right, RC. Let's dive into it. They finally got the W last night. We were talking to Adam Trigger yesterday, in fact, and Trig was the only one that I knew was back in Indiana going, hey, guys, this is the time to back them. Well, they got the win. Are they getting them for a second time here today, back-to-back, taking on the Vegas Aces?
No, this is a tough spot here. The Aces coming off an outright loss to the Mercury, and then the Fever coming off their first win. Obviously, there might be sort of like an emotional high for them. And then also just from a schedule standpoint, it's been really tough for the Fever team, right? The Fever playing third road game in 4 nights, second leg of back-to-back games, obviously getting that first win yesterday. Not only that, but every single game they've played so far this season, they've had to travel for. So this is their 7th straight game with travel. And do I think the Fever win here? No, I don't think so. But I'm not going to run to the window with the Aces just because, they're in a bounce back situation because their defense has been terrible as well, which is why I like the over in this game. Both of these teams, bottom 2 in defensive rating, bottom 2 in average points allowed per game. Neither team's forcing turnovers at a high rate either. I think the Fever offense, I think they've looked a little bit better since Mitchell has been healthy, and it looks like they found their rotation. They have a 8-woman rotation right now that they've been running with. Surprised Lexi Hull is not in that rotation, but yesterday obviously they showed up well in the second half specifically, and also finally getting that first win. It could be a huge confidence booster for that offense as well. But I do think that this is a strong bounce back situation for the Aces. So if anyone was going to take the Aces, from a spread perspective, I wouldn't be able to talk them off. But I think the total would be the better way to go here and take the over.
Ooh, over. I think we're looking at a couple people in the chat here. Drabaka42 in agreement. Got to look to fade the Fever here tonight. Also been looking at what do we got? A 14-plus rebound and Aces win for Asia. Wilson, what do you think there? Any sort of combo? You're expecting big numbers across the board, prop market as well for the Aces here today. It just feels like, yeah, this is, they got it, the monkey off the back, right? So they got the win. There is no more talk about, being winless. They got it, but this is an impossible spot, especially with them coming off a loss, no?
Yeah, I could see, the Fever have some bigs, right? They got Boston, Noah Smith, but I would actually think that the guards come out to play for the Aces more. Just like looking at Plum or mainly Plum, just because she's been able to, especially in the last game, I think kind of got into a groove with the 3-point shot, and the above the break 3 has been a problem for the Fever, and that's where Plum really kind of is successful at. So if I was to look at any points props, I would look towards Plum, and maybe even just point directly towards her threes. I'm assuming it would probably be like 4 threes. So that would probably be the way that I go from a prop perspective in this Aces game. I think Fever, they're going to run. I think they're going to run a lot here. The Aces run with the fastest pace. Fever is actually one of the slower paced teams, but playing on a second leg of back-to-back games, I think the Aces are going to try and push that pace for the most part, just to try and take advantage of it, right? So we see that a lot in the NBA as well. Teams try to take advantage of tired legs. So that's what I would expect them to do here.
Couple of trends we're seeing out. By the way, shout out to M. Burris on Instagram. Day drinking and firing off bets today. We would expect nothing less from those of you on Instagram here today. Outstanding job already pouring himself a cocktail here and looking at Plum over 2.5 threes here. RC, what do you think? AOD in the house looking for some bombs away here today. What do you think?
Yeah, 2.5 threes. I think that's definitely doable, and especially in this type of game where she wants to show up against Kaylin Clark, right? So
yes,
I think it's definitely doable. 2.5. That must be
Yeah,
kind of juiced.
big time.
It probably is.
Yes. Yeah, I would imagine it's definitely going to be juiced here. Thinking that maybe Ali Boston gets baptized today in this game here. Listen, it's not going to be pretty, but there are going to be games like this for the Fever that are not going to be pretty. But you mentioned it, Vegas coming off of a loss. So are the Liberty coming up at the top of the hour. I saw a couple of guys in there. I think Big Daddy looking to back the Liberty in the first half against the Lynx here. What are you thinking about the Liberty's bounce back spot? Boy, what were they laying, 17 in that game
15,
this week?
15 or so, I think. Yeah, that was tough. I think I stayed off of that game for a reason, but I didn't expect them to lose outright.
Yes.
That was the one that was kind of tough to watch there. It's not like it was a big look ahead or anything like that, but I think I expected. The Liberty, they're rated number 2 in offensive rating, number 2 in defensive rating. I expect them to take advantage of sort of, I think, multiple spade spots that the Lynx are in. Right, they're coming off of 2 straight games that went into OT. Obviously, there was a little bit of rest between the 2 games, but that's still that's still something to be worried about as far as tired legs and all that stuff. And this is also the front end of a back-to-back as well. They play a tough Dream team tomorrow in Atlanta, so they even have to travel. So that's tough to kind of play on if you were looking towards the Lynx there. But Liberty, like I said, I think they bounced back in some type of way here on the offensive side of the ball at the very least. It's tough because the Lynx, if you look at it from a points per game perspective, it's kind of misleading because they've gone into overtime in 2 games. One of them, I think, went into double OT with the Storm, and they're also they've also faced 2 of the worst paint defenses in the league so far this season in the Storm and the Sun.
Yep.
And the Liberty are number 1 in paint field goal percentage allowed. So meaning they're limiting, they're disrupting opposing offenses in the paint. So that's going to be tough if they're really relying in points in the paint. That's going to be tough to come by against the Liberty.
Yeah, no, going to be very tough to come by for sure. There, Edgar in the house. Welcome in, Edgar. We appreciate you as always. William Bennett is here. We are getting ready, guys. Coming up here in just a minute, Carmine Bianco, the puckhead of all puckheads, will be on talking about this all-important Game 2 coming up. He's also watching this Man City Man U game right now, and it's still 2-0 here. So we'll see. We get to watch him sweat it out in real time, guys. That's absolutely fantastic here. Also, RC, how about you today? Lock loaded? What are you looking at here today at WagerTalk.com? Is this the mute?
Oh, sorry about that. I was mute. As you can tell, I'm a little bit sick, so I muted myself when I was coughing. So I have 1 in the NBA, 2 in the WNBA. I think I'm gonna have 1 in the MLB, and then I believe that should be it. Those are up right now. The MLB one is not yet. I'm just trying to figure out which one I want to take on for now. But those are probably gonna be 4 plays today total.
Right now, WT.buzz/RC. Get it done with him. Ron, we appreciate it as always, man. Cash those tickets. Feel better here today. We've got some wonderful suggestions in the chat to feeling better today. Plenty of day drinking. Somebody named Mary Jane might make a visit to the house, apparently, on house calls, something along those lines. So they've got an answer for everything, this chat room. I told you that. Gotta love the day drinking happening right now on this Memorial Day Saturday here this weekend. All right, so we've got Adam Trigger coming up, locked and loaded. Big play for him today in Major League Baseball. 15 games on tap. Everybody's in. And he, of course, is going to break down a couple of games for us and answer any questions. Also, BP, Bryan Power, once again, will be here, going to dive in to the NBA game, not just today, but tomorrow. And, of course, he's got plenty of Major League Baseball action coming up as well. But let's welcome him in, the one, the only, Mr. Carmine Bianco in the house. So, Carm, Still 2-0 here. What are we about? 68 minutes? Where are we at here in this Man City?
Yeah, we're in the 68th minute. It's 2-0. It's like these teams must have swapped jerseys before the game. It's not a client play, but I played it, and then I've got Rob Braley. He's a huge Man United fan, so we've got a drink bet on this one. And the way the guy drinks his double vodkas and soda, I'm in for a hefty bill if City don't come back in this one.
Oh, boy. Running out of time here, as they say, Carm. Not just one, but 2 goals down here early in that match. We've got plenty coming up next month. We'll talk about here in a few minutes, Carm, because I know you're excited. We got some big-time soccer coming to fruition over the next month from June to July. You're going to talk all about that out in Germany. But we do have a game 2 here today coming up between Edmonton and Dallas. And before we get to that, though, Carr, your thoughts on another overtime game in the NHL last night. The Florida Panthers, I mean, Jesus, Barkov, you had enough times they could have ended that game last night, but they let the Rangers hang around, Carm, and guess what? Ended up catching them in overtime. But anybody that I've talked to legit thought this was a 6-7 game series anyway, right?
Yeah, I thought it would go 6, at least 6 games, possibly 7. And the futures market, you could take an option of before the series started of that Florida series going 6 games. You could find plus 205. Going exactly 7 games, you could also find plus 205. So I took them both and just said to myself, as long as this series does not end in 5 or less, I'm going to make even money on this bet. So you're basically betting, you're getting plus 105 on the series to go 6 or 7 games. And I talked about that on Puck Time. I thought that was a good wager. This is a series where I think it zigzags pretty much throughout it, and it did zigzag in the first couple of games. But Joe, I'm going to tell you, man, if I was on the Rangers yesterday, I was on Trocheck shots on goal. Those both cashed. They were uncomfortable. The Trocheck one was an easy win, but I'm telling you, the Rangers played quite possibly their best game of the playoffs thus far, and it was barely enough to beat Florida. That tells you how good this Florida team is, and I'm not feeling really good about that to go 6 or 7 games, because I have a feeling that this could easily go back to Florida. And then when it returns to Madison Square Gardens for Game 5, I think the Rangers could be in a 3-1 hole in this one. I know there's a lot of Ranger fans out there, but if you looked at yesterday's game, Florida was right there. One bounce the other way, and this series was destined to be a short one, Joe.
Barkov, I'm just still trying to figure out how that give and go with Tarasenko, how he just hit the post is beyond me.
In front of the net.
Please. They had a couple of opportunities for sure to end that. But like you said, and please, Ranger fans, stop telling me about Rempe being a decision, a guy that's going to push the Tides towards the Rangers. The dude is like 9 foot tall out there, and all he is like a blocking sled. That's all he is. That's not going to get it done ultimately, but they didn't get pushed around nearly as much as they did in Game 1. Now you have another surprise Dallas loss in Game 1 at home with Ottinger, just a head-scratching team here, how it is that they can't. You get the number 1 seed, supposed to have home ice, Carm, supposed to win Game 1. They can't do it. Now here we go again, back against the wall. History tells us we should be on Dallas here tonight, right? But should we be?
It's the interesting thing, Joe. I think going into tonight, the whole world, everyone I've talked to, everyone who's betting the game, everyone is on Dallas. And I share a completely different thought. I think Edmonton's the play. Going into Game 1, I had the Oilers as a 5% play at plus 110 in that game. I felt great when it was 2-0. I didn't feel so good when it went to OT, and then McDavid takes a 4-minute high sticking penalty I thought I was dead in the water, but they're penalty killing. Number 1 in the playoffs this season, the Edmonton Oilers. Their power play, number 2. And it was number 1 going into the series, but failing to score in the power play dropped them just below the Colorado Avalanche as far as percentage-wise as the top team in the playoffs power play. But they're specialty teams that have the advantage. The one I talked about, the one thing that I worried about going into Game 1 with Edmonton was, can Stuart Skinner replicate what he did in Games 6 and 7 of that Vancouver series, where he just, for lack of a better word, stood on his head. He was he was phenomenal in that series. And the one thing that's always hovered, it's that Linus, the dark cloud over the head of the Edmonton Oilers each and every playoff season, is their goaltending. Their goaltending lets them down. We saw it last year with Jack Campbell. Each and every year, that's the problem. Maybe Stuart Skinner is the guy this year. He seems dialed in. At one point this season, he won 12 games in a row. They gave him a couple games off during the series, games 4 and 5 against Vancouver. He responded by coming back and playing extremely well games 6 and 7. And you look at Game 1 of this series, and a defensive miscue that gave the puck away within 5 feet of the net leads to a goal. And then the second goal was a deflection off the skate that went across the goal crease to a wide open Dallas player who popped it into the net. So it's they're goals that weren't his fault. They're goals that kind of let them down. But this Edmonton team is playing extremely well. They cycle the puck. They get into the O-zone. They're playing extremely well. And if Skinner can do what he's done in the last 3 games, they're at par goaltending-wise now with Jake Ottinger, who's one of my favorite goalies as well, too. Then you look at forwards, and the team that can score here is this Edmonton Oilers team. You give them a power play, they're going to make you pay for it. Didn't happen in Game 1, but could very well happen in Game 2. These guys are going to be ready to go. I'm going against the world on this one. I'm taking the Edmonton Oilers in this one, and I like the first period. Yeah, I like some scoring in this game, Joe. So the first period, you can get over 1.5, minus 115 in this game. On the season, the Oilers were 24-17 to the first period over on the road, 4-3 thus far in the playoffs. Same numbers for Dallas during the regular season at home. They were a great over team, especially in the first period, 24-17, very profitable, and 5-3 in the first period overs at home in the playoffs thus far for Dallas. You know, I get it. It's a must win for Dallas, Joe, but they are 3-5 at home in the playoffs. Home teams have not done well in the playoffs thus far. At one point, it was 31-40 prior to the Rangers winning. So I think it's now 32-41 for home teams in the playoffs this year. The home ice advantage does not exist. And we've seen the Stars lose 2 in a row at home. They lost them to the Vegas Golden Knights before winning 4 straight. So anything is possible.
I can tell you this, Car, and I believe they're saying, I never got clarity on what was going on with Rupe Hintz. It looks like he's back here today. Who is this deeper team, Carm? Edmonton's the better name brand with the bigger, the name brand superstars that they have there, but isn't Dallas the deeper team here?
You would think so, absolutely. And Rupe Hintz, if he's back in the lineup, I knew going into Game 1 that he would not play, and he would be questionable for Game 2. I think he was on the ice this morning at the morning skate, so he's likely going to be in the lineup. They need him in the lineup. Does he make an immediate impact for the team? I'm not necessarily sure. I think the carryover here is a bit of a momentum for the Edmonton Oilers now, obviously having won 3 straight, but also the fact that you look at their 2 big stars, and especially McDavid, he was unhappy with everything that shook down or went down in Game 1. And, it was the ice time for him that worried me. In Game 6 and 7 of the Vancouver series, he played 3 minutes less than any other game during the playoffs. So we were thinking maybe there's something wrong with him. He seems fine. He seemed fine. And, he got that game winner. He was really unhappy about that penalty, that 4-minute penalty for him. This guy is he's a leader. He's going to be out there tonight. And I'm going to give you a couple of player props as well, too. And then you have Draisaitl. Same thing. Their stars are coming, but it's the other core guys who are chipping in. And I like their D as well, too. All season long, Joe, to your point, I said I thought Dallas was the best team in the West. And they finished first in the West. But sometimes the best team throughout the regular season just doesn't get it done in the playoffs. And I'm not saying this series is over by any means, but the Oilers are now minus 190 to win the series, obviously having taken over home ice advantage. And that price is only going to go up if they somehow find a way to win game 2.
So are we thinking interesting, too? I thought last night we would be the goals might have come later in the game, but they got them all in the first period here. I believe Edmonton drew first blood in game 1. What about the first period here, Carm? Do you think the offense is rain? Do you think the Stars buckle down here? Both teams scoring here in the first. What do you think we're going to get right out of the gate in this game tonight?
Well, since we started chatting on this game, that first period over 1.5 minus 115 is now over 1.5 minus 125. Ooh. So I don't know which one of you guys, probably Dan Alexander, just clicking on that over button.
I just saw it move.
That guy's got more money. The guy's he moved from Philly to the West Coast. The guy's living next to Charlie Sheen, Malibu Beach there, man. This guy, he's living the life. But the Oilers are even money to win the first period. So it's and that's the two-way money line. So again, I'm going against. I'm taking the contrarian. The contrarian angle here because, like I said, everyone I've talked to likes the Dallas Stars tonight. So I'm on a good run. I'm on an 11-2 run. I'm not going to change my mind because everyone says the Stars are going to win. If they win, so be it. Good, congratulations. But I'm sticking with the Oilers. I'll take them in the first period because if nothing else, all the pressure is on the Dallas Stars right now. So we'll see what they come out with. That it's going to be rocking in Dallas tonight, but I just like this Oilers team. Joe, I want to talk about a couple of props here.
Sure.
Connor McDavid.
Hold on one sec, Carl. Let me get to some of these guys in the chat room that have some comments for
Absolutely.
you. Eric D really wants to bet the over, but he does need some emotional support from us, so we'll give him that. Big Daddy is looking one way or the other on the over. And I know if you're thinking over, Carm, which I think is what you said here, you're leaning towards the over in this one. Well, that means goal props are probably alive and well for both of these teams. And there are some questions as far as who are you looking at as far as goal scorers here tonight. And looking at some of the list, I mean, Wyatt Johnson still plays, doesn't he? He's at about plus 190, almost still plus 200. I know there was some love for Robertson here tonight as well for Dallas. Their stars have to show up, right? I mean, Dallas's stars have to win this game at home tonight if they're going to have a shot. So who do you like in this matchup here tonight there, Carm, to find the net?
Yeah, like why? If you're looking at it from like a Dallas perspective, we'll look at it both ways. If you're looking at it from as far as goal scorers from a Dallas perspective, Wyatt Johnson, he was huge in that earlier series. I think it was against the Vegas Golden Knights, and this guy is a young guy with a lot of talent. He's like plus 180 to score tonight. He's going to get the ice time. Anytime you take a goal scorer, you always want to take a guy who's going to get at least 20 to 22 minutes of ice time. You don't want a guy who's out there for, like a Rempe from the Rangers, who's going to get 10 shifts, 5 minutes max, and you're literally praying he does something in one of those shifts. Johnson will be out there. He's part of the specialty teams as well too. He's plus 180. It's one you can look at. Jason Robertson plus 235. I'm seeing at DK as well too. again, a good talent on that team and a guy who can score. He did it earlier in the playoffs. He needs to get it going again in this series. If the Dallas guys are going to come, are going to show up tonight, these are the two of the guys that need to get the scoring done. I wouldn't take a guy like Joe Pavelski. It seems like he has hands of stone in the playoffs this season. He just can't get anything going. I'm not even sure. I think he has one goal in the playoffs. If anything, you can't take a guy like that. You got to take a guy who consistently will score, which is why you see guys like Zach Hyman, who has 12 goals in the playoffs this season. Zach Hyman has more goals in the playoffs than the Leafs scored, the combined Leafs roster scored in the playoffs. Former Maple Leaf Zach Hyman, can't believe they let him go to the Edmonton Oilers.
Oh,
Joe, even in the third round of the playoffs, I got to take a shot at the Leafs. I'm sorry.
Come on. I was going to say, Leaf fans know that. You got to be kidding me. Big question here, Carm, before we get to your MLS play here tonight. Why, if you like Dallas tonight, it appears that a lot of guys are asking what they love the series price. Dallas at plus 150, 160 right now here to come back and win this. I'm guessing now would be the time, or do you think if they lose this game tonight, then the series is out of reach here? You're not going to go down 2-0 and then head to Edmonton and still win the series, or are you, Carm?
No, they very well could, because we saw it we thought they were dead and buried. Everyone pretty much wrote them off against the Vegas Golden Knights. I didn't. I thought if they could win Game 3 in Vegas, they were right back in the series. But they lost the first 2 games at home, head to Vegas, against the defending Stanley Cup champions, and go in there and win both games. Look at what they did to the Colorado Avalanche. They went into Colorado, beat Colorado 3 times in Colorado, kept them to a goal in every single game, and it's a Colorado team that can score goals. So by no means are the Dallas Stars dead and buried. Even if they lose tonight, you'll get an even better price if you believe that they can come back and win in that series. I would not start throwing dirt on the or trying to put another nail in their coffin, because this Dallas team, as you said, Joe, they are a deep team, and at the end of the day, when you have a very good goalie and Jake Ottinger are a very good goalie, they can get back into a series even if they're down 2-0. But that price will drop from that nice plus price they have right now on Dallas, should they win tonight. It'll probably drop to probably the Oilers minus 125, take back plus 105 on Dallas. So take the plus money now. I remember a guy, he could be even in our chat, after they lost the first couple games to the Vegas Golden Knights. He said, I can get 16-1 on Dallas to win the Stanley Cup. I said, that's a great price, because if they go to Vegas and win games 3 and 4, that price is going to drop to 7-1, 8-1, and it did. So that guy's holding a very nice ticket. He played it at 16-1 on them. Quickly, I'm going to mention, Joe, 2-player props. Connor McDavid over 1.5 points, minus 115. I like that one. McDavid had 2 points in the last game. Draisaitl, he's gone I think it's in 11 games or 13 games. Draisaitl has gone over his points prop, which is 1.5 plus 130. And let me just get this right. I want to make sure I don't quote an incorrect number to you guys. But in 13 games, he has stayed under only 4 times. So he's 9-4 over 1.5 points, game points, and he's plus 130. And the guy's part of the power play. If they get power plays and they get goals, Joe, those power plays are always deadly. You're going to cash a good ticket. So I'll take Draisaitl over 1.5 points plus 130.
Yeah, I like that. As a matter of fact, let me get the quote here. I believe it was Steven also likes him to get a power play point here tonight as well. I mean, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right, Carr? I mean, Edmonton on the road is going to need to come up big, and how many more times do we need to see Draisaitl do just that? So over 1.5 at plus money for his points here tonight. We've got a few guys now liking him for a power play point as well. A lot of different ways to approach this game. But your take on the total in this is over, correct? You're leaning over on this one? All right. There you go, Big Daddy. Yeah. There you go. Carm's liking the over tonight. That's it. Here we go. Dallas-Edmonton Game 2 coming up. Let's not forget Carmine. And also, let's not forget MLB coming up next, guys. Two of the best, Adam Trigger and Bryan Power, will be here to dive into the loaded baseball slate we've got up here today. So make sure you hit that like button if you could, the thumbs up. I believe AOD running around the chat room calling everyone a dingleberry. But we're not going to go that far. Just a quick thumbs up would be great. Don't have to go the dingleberry route there, AOD, but we certainly appreciate it. What are we doing soccer here, Carm? I know you've got an MLS game coming up tonight, which I do believe you might know somebody in attendance. Is that correct here tonight?
Yeah, so I'm a season ticket holder. We're going to look quickly at the Toronto-Cincinnati game, FC Cincinnati. I'm a season ticket holder, have been for many years through their championship season. So I'm going to the game tonight with my wife. She absolutely loves watching football. She's a huge Federico Bernardeschi fan who played for Juventus, played for the Euro team that won the 2020 Euros. Unfortunately, he's suspended tonight, so she's not happy about that part of it. So maybe he'll come and sit with us in the stands. But I'm looking at Cincinnati here, and here's the thing: is I've got to go watch the game with her and not tell her that I bet Cincinnati. They're plus 141 in this game, and Cincy is on a great roll right now. They're the best informed team at the moment. 6 straight wins, 3 clean sheets, or 2 clean sheets in those. They're 1 point back of Inter Miami. The Lionel Messi train that is down where you live, Joe. Yeah. And they're the best defensive side. They only allow a 0.79 goals per game. Toronto completely different. Toronto at home concede or overall have conceded an average of 1.43 goals per game. Toronto comes in off of back-to-back wins, but one of them was against CF Montreal in the Derby. Montreal is one of the worst teams in the league this season. Absolutely abysmal team. Bernardeschi scored 3 goals in that game. Toronto won at home 5-1. I would draw a line through that. They're not going to win games by those margins. And then they played a team from Quebec in the Canadian Championship. This is a team in like the 2nd division, and they spanked them 8-1. Again, draw a line through it. You could pick any MLS team to play that team from Quebec, and they probably put 10 in on them. So it's just the way it is here. It's kind of like the U.S. Open for the MLS American teams, that they have their own competitions and play the lower level teams in the opening rounds. So this is a great spot for Cincinnati to keep on winning. That Cincinnati train is rolling right now, and you're getting plus money, plus 141 on them with Toronto's best player and best playmaker out of the lineup tonight. So Toronto's a better team than they were last year. John Herdman, the coach who coached Canada to the World Cup, took over TFC. They've bought into a system, but when you're missing players, you're out of sync, and I think they're going to be out of sync tonight. As Dan said, a 2-1 scoreline would be perfectly fine. Maybe both teams to score over 2.5, but our producer. But I'm just going to take the straight plus 141 here. Sit back and watch the game, and try not to cheer too loud.
Yep. Over 2.5 is the juice price there, minus 130, 135. But hey, go get it, Carm. He's going to be in attendance. It's a good thing, Carm, you weren't in attendance here at this Man City, Man United game. We're in the 90th minute. It's 2-1. Man City.
92nd minute. 7 minutes of extra time.
Oh, come on. Let's go here. We got one more goal we need, right, for Man City? Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah, because you and I have them to at halftime. We took a small wager each on to lift the trophy. So even though if they're tied after 90 minutes somehow in the injury time, it'll go to extra time, penalty kicks, and all they got to do is win there. But they're still going to need a goal, and they've only got about 4 minutes to do it.
Ooh, Cincinnati to score in both halves. Stevens dropping in there. I believe Desmond backing him on that one in your MLS game here tonight. All right. We just a quick reminder here, guys, before we get to the MLB. Carmine, coming up this week, you and Kelly Stewart have a great preview of the Euro 2024 games that are coming up beginning next, well, actually in a couple of weeks, right? Middle of June through July.
Yep. June 14th.
Should be it's going to be fantastic here. A lot of soccer guys that are in the chat looking forward to this. I would definitely encourage you guys, once it is available, check it out on WagerTalk on their YouTube page. Great stuff by Carmine breaking this down. This is the one event, Carm, this, and of course the World Cup, but you have done this now every couple of years. You love this event, and this year is no different. You're looking very forward to this.
I am looking forward to it. It was very painful to do this video just because as a Canadian, as an Italian, you'll watch the video, but I don't have Italy winning this at all. I have probably their arch nemesis amongst the fan base winning. I'm not going to spoil it for you. You're going to have to watch the video to see it. And this is going to be a great tournament. Starts June 14th. Germany in Germany, all games in Germany. Germany hosting, I believe, Scotland in the first game, the opening of the this tournament. And then there's two other tournaments, the Leagues Cup, which will be in August. That's all the League MX teams from Mexico and all the MLS teams. But sandwiched in between, in the U.S. for the first time, Copa America, all the teams from Brazil, or the national teams, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, all the teams are coming to the U.S. The United States will be in it as well, too, the men's national team, Canada, Mexico. It's going to be a great tournament played in the U.S. They're going after the TV money, of course. That's why it's here for the first time in the U.S. And I'm going to come and watch some games. So hopefully I'll catch up with some fans down there. And we got a great promo on my page. You can get the rest of the NHL season and all three tournaments for only $199, and that's a great deal in itself. There's going to be a ton of plays that I release, and you got something other than baseball during the summer to wager on.
Yes. Love this, Carm. Guys, check out that video during the week, but more importantly, check out Carm over at wt.buzz/CB. Carm, enjoy the damn games here today. Edmonton and the over for Carmine coming up in the NHL. Cincinnati is who he is going to be backing tonight at the game against Toronto in the MLS. All right, guys, don't forget to smash that like button for us. Big shout out to IG there. Those, it's Mike, Ciche in the house. We appreciate you guys stopping by. Desmond Castro hanging out, ready to roll here, as is GQ Hustler in the house. Robert, MKVL is here. Big Daddy Lemon Drop. Man, been looking in the obituaries for you, Lemon Drop. Good to see you again here. Ray is in the house. And more importantly, guys, get your damn gloves and let's go. We got to talk some MLB here today. And one of the best at it, Adam Trigger in the house here. And Trig, all week long, anybody that follows First Pitch here on WagerTalk, you guys know there is some sort of weird fascination with the White Sox and Adam Trigger, but he promised not to talk about them in this game today. So there will be no White Sox talk here. I want there to be at least one game in which Trig does not look at the White Sox here. But instead, Trig, I want to talk about some of the games that are coming up. Loaded slate here, and we'll start with the Athletics, another team that you have certainly had your finger on the pulse of. Well, a lot of people have been scratching their heads about them. Not you, though. You're looking at them against the Astros. What are we looking at in here with Sears on the mound?
Yeah, so we've actually talked about the Astros probably more than the A's, but we seem to hit this series. So these two teams have played frequently over the last couple weeks. I've kind of talked about the Astros the last couple weeks as a team that I thought we would start to see take a step forward, and they have. But if we go back to yesterday's First Pitch show, Joe, this game went exactly as I said it would on the show, where the Astros were in a really tough spot with their bullpen. As soon as they got behind, they kind of mailed it in. Gave the ball to Kyle Muller and just said, here you go, mop up. We'll see if we can get back into this game. but that was always the plan. It turned into a pretty comfortable Astros win when it was all said and done. But the good news for the A's and the reason I kind of thought they would do that is this game sets up much better for them. And now they've got all of their top relievers, behind JP Sears, who in my opinion is their best starting pitcher. So, here you have Sears, who is going to give you 5 or 6 innings. They're typically going to be pretty good. 4.31 ERA, 1.18 WHIP this season. Certainly the Astros can get to him. I mean, this is a very good Astros lineup that's starting to hit, but that you have to like, if you're looking at the A's, you have to like the fact that Sears is going to give you probably 5 innings of respectable ball. And then you've got all the big guys on the back end, the Mason Millers, the top relievers in that bullpen. And if you look at the A's and what they've done this year, they have played so good when they have a lead. They if you look at almost all of their wins have been a result of get the lead, stay in the lead, get the ball to Miller to close it out. They haven't been good playing from behind. So this kind of profiles as a game where they could lead. And that leads me to believe the +1.5 with the A's is a good bet. Now, Spencer Arrighetti, someone we've talked about a ton as well. I actually backed him over on Sunday. I played him and the Astros against the Brewers. I got a win by backing him, but now he's a little bit overvalued. So the sort of the appeal to Arrighetti was the fact that he gets called up. He plays against a bunch of tough teams, right? The Royals, the Braves. I think he had a start against the Cubs. Really, really tough run of games for him. And then he got a couple of easier ones. But now he's a -150 favorite. I don't know if I can get down with that, Joe. He's got, we're starting to get a sample at the big league level of him. He's a 7.16 ERA and 1.81 WHIP. That's not very good. Even though he did have to face some really tough competition, he's still given up 2 or more earned runs in every start. And the A's are going to be the team that gets to see him for the second time. So this will be the first team that Arrighetti's faced at the big league level that sees him for a second time. And another thing with this A's lineup, all of these guys were down at AAA within the last year or so, for the most part. You look at the A's, 1 through 9, almost every one of those guys was at AAA at some point since the beginning of 2023. And so they've all had a huge sample against Arrighetti, who, of course, pitches for Sugarland. He's in the PCL. Yep. There's only 10 teams in that league. So the PCL teams face each other a lot. And so now you're talking about an A's lineup that has a pretty big sample facing Arrighetti down at AAA that just got to see him as a team last week. That to me, tells me to maybe play against him, because the thing with Arrighetti, especially at the big league level, command is a thing. Like, he can go and get swing and misses for the most part in AAA against AAA hitters. Pro hitters, they don't swing at balls as often, Joe. You know that. And he'll put a few guys on. He'll groove one. I think the Yankees, another tough team that he had to face, took him deep 3 times. So to me, you can't be laying a 1.5 there if you're the Astros with Arrighetti. So for this game, A's +1.5, I think I saw it down to maybe -125. That's a pretty good bet. I wouldn't be surprised if they hung around and maybe even won this game.
It's amazing to me, Arrighetti. I mean, he's got decent stuff, but he has no idea where it's going, Trig. He's like, when it comes to command, he's got none of it. He's one of the worst when it comes to that. And he's also one of the worst, pitchers that walk guys a million times. But they did face each other a couple of weeks ago, I think, and he only gave up 2 runs. But I think he was lucky to get that as well.
So I want to comment on that. And Eric in the chat made a great point. The A's hit home runs at a rate that, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but a couple weeks ago, I think maybe 10 days ago, they were 4th in the majors behind the Orioles, Dodgers, and Yankees. I think I have that correct.
Yep.
So, this team hits home runs at a rate similar to some of the top teams in the league. And the thing that's helped Arrighetti out the last couple starts is, if you look at his early starts when the Royals blew him up, I think the Cubs blew him up, he was putting guys on base, too many walks, trying to nibble. The last couple starts, he's been had a little bit of confidence. He's been more willing to throw the ball over the plate. But, if you're just throwing it over the plate at some point, big league hitters are going to adjust to that too. I referenced the Yankees start, which was, he got taken deep 3 times. The last two starts, he's been pretty good. But again, like his offense showed up last week against the Brewers, so he had a little bit of a lead. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple A's go deep. Maybe even Daz Cameron, who just recently got called up, hit the big homer a couple nights ago. If he's in the lineup, I think that could be a good matchup because he's been in Las Vegas for most of this season, and I think he's got a pretty big sample. I'd have to go back and check that, but he's kind of locked in right now. He took Estuary Ruiz's spot on the roster when he went to the IL, hit a big home run in that game against the Rockies. So maybe he's the guy that gets him today. But I think it's a good matchup for the A's to take the 1.5 head start.
Yeah, it's kind of good. They have been very good, the A's, guys. 104 WRC plus against righties. That's good for 11th in baseball. They hit fastballs really, really well, and that's pretty much what Arrigetti's going to give them. The fact is he may not know where it's always going, Trig, which is always interesting with him there. All right, shout out to the chat room here. You mentioned it, Eric and the gang having in there Ray likes athletics or pass for us. I know over in on Instagram, it's my 23 wants to touch base on the Marlins. We will do that coming up. That has become a very interesting team. But Trig, we've got another game you want to break down. Didn't like the Red Sox yesterday. I did like the Brewers yesterday. That turned out to be a pretty good bet. But what about today here as the Red Sox try to even this series up? How you looking at it?
Yeah, so I was complaining about the pitching change in the Pirates game, which I felt like cost me a win because I broke the Pirates. I broke the Pirates down on first pitch yesterday, but I will say that like I did like the Red Sox yesterday, so maybe I got saved by one. So of course the Brewers used an opener. Joe, I'm going to be annoyed if the opener thing comes back. It really kind of messes things up. So the Brewers used an opener, which was literally just a guy. It was Koenig to get like out of the first inning, which he didn't even get out of the first inning. I was okay with playing against Bryce Wilson, but to his credit, he pitched a pretty good game. He's someone that I kind of had pegged for some regression, but he came in, got out of the first, and the Brewers kind of cruised to a win there. Another guy that I've been willing to play against, the reason I was on Arrigetti and the Astros last week, a big reason for that, was I wanted to play against Colin Ria. And I'm willing to do it again here with the Red Sox. I think, he's a guy that went over to Japan, had a good season over to Japan, came back, was really pretty strong for the Brewers last year for a lot of the year, came out hot this year. But when I look at his stuff and I look at just the eye test watching him pitch, it doesn't make sense that he was getting big league hitters out at the rate that he was. So, you look at some of the strikeout numbers with him. 35 strikeouts in 48.2 innings. He's given up his share of hard contact. Kind of nailed it last week. The Astros come right out of the gate. I think Altuve put the first batter of the game that faced Rea. He put one in the seats. They put 4 up in the first inning and really kind of probably could have done more damage. If you watch that Astros-Brewers game, which was Rea's most recent start, the Astros let him off the hook a little bit. The line score ended up being not as bad as I thought it probably could have been. Astros left some guys on base in that game. So I don't even think that was like fully representative of the damage maybe the Red Sox could do here because, the one thing we do know about the Red Sox over the years, team tends to hit better at Fenway. It's almost like it doesn't matter which Red Sox team it is. Their hitting splits are almost always better at Fenway Park. And now you've got Nick Pivetta, who is someone like he's looked phenomenal his last 2 starts. He had an elbow injury. They maybe rushed him back a little bit because they really kind of were in a pinch for pitching. He missed about a month, went and only had 1 rehab start at Worcester. So I'm almost willing to throw away that first start back. I believe it was against the Braves where he kind of was shaky, maybe only went like 4 innings. The last 2 starts, pitched into the 6th inning against the Rays, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts, no walks. Most recent start, 6 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, no walks against the Cardinals. Kind of like him to have another good start today. This is a Brewers lineup that I feel like, you look at their April numbers, Joe. 18-11 was the win-loss record, but the offense, like the run scoring was off the charts. Like it felt like they capitalized on every time they had a runner in scoring position, they got the hit. they were able to almost like with somewhat average offensive metrics put up like 5+ runs a game. Well, we talked about this early in the month, and it's kind of, slowly starting to happen. The Brewers, go from 18-11 in April, 10-10 in May. Offense is starting to regress just a tiny bit. So, coming off of the win, now they have to face Pivetta, who's he's been kind of locked in his last 2 starts. But with the fact that the Red Sox really should be able to do some damage against Colin Ria here, it puts me on the Red Sox. I think -145 is fair as far as the price is concerned. Probably the reason it didn't make my client card, but I do like the Red Sox to bounce back and get the win today.
Liking the Red Sox to bounce back. Yeah, another one of those teams where I thought the Brewers over the last month, to your point, they got every break in the world. And then the injuries started happening, but they have been really good against right-handed pitching over the last month. And you said it, Fenway is a hitter's ballpark. There's no way around it here. It almost feels like an over, too, might not be a bad look here. If Pivetta can miss enough barrels, that's for sure.
I mean, listen, like Fenway's a place I've been a million times. There's something about it's tough for teams that aren't used to playing there, like the Brewers. That's a tough place to play. It's not going to affect the Rays or the Orioles or the Yankees or even most American League teams that end up there all the time. But those National League teams that don't get to Fenway very often, that can be an intimidating park. Especially it's a Saturday 4 p.m. game. It'll probably be sold out. You're going to have a fantastic crowd there. It's intimidating,
especially during the day.
I don't have. I would be interested to see what the numbers are. I'm sure Ralph could pull them up in 2 seconds for us. But those National League teams that don't come there very often, I guarantee have a losing record at Fenway. Even when the Red Sox aren't elite, which is I would say this year they're kind of a 500 team.
Yeah, well, and they got to pick up the bats. That's the bottom line for them. We have a giant brawl happening in here. I believe Sean Alvarez just throwing bombs in the chat room, making fun of the Phillies from last night. There, I believe Aaron Nola back on the mound. I don't know if we're going. Listen, the Phillies are a team here where you almost feel, especially against inferior teams here, Trig. You got one of your aces on the mound, and Aaron Nola. It's juiced to high hell. Everything about them is juiced to high hell. But Harper gets tossed in the game last night. I know a lot of guys are looking for Harper to go long in this game here. But do we trust Nola as a 245 favorite? No offense, Dan. And Dan, put your damn microphone on because I know you don't trust him either at -245 here. How did you look at this game? Would it just be like an over or not for you there, Trig?
I'd be Phillies or nothing. We talked about this game on First Pitch yesterday. I said don't bet the Phillies yesterday. I was on First Pitch saying this would be the spot where the Rockies could steal one. And sure enough, they did. But you're not going to hold the Phillies offense down all weekend. I'd almost be surprised if the Rockies took this series somehow. I thought that last night was their chance to get the win, and they got it. So credit to the Rockies for that. But I never say never, right? No one thought the Rockies were going to rattle off 7 straight wins and sweep the Padres a week ago. So I wouldn't be
so true.
I wouldn't be betting the Phillies like it's a guarantee, but it's certainly. I think if you wanted to mess with the Rockies, you probably missed your chance. The chance was last night. So I'm not sure plus anything less than +200 is enough value to even take a shot there. The run line's always a kind of a bargain in Coors because the totals are high. Always. So they'll give you that plus money on the +1.5. In this case, I think it's +130. Not the way I would go. It would be Phillies and parlay it with something or just find another game to bet on.
Dan, are you laying $9 with Nola on the road?
Aaron Nola to record a win? No. +110. That's the bet, Joe.
All right.
All right. Wow. Look at that, people here. Aaron Nola, no, to record the win is the bet. It says Mr. Philly himself here. Kind of love that. I would have never ever looked at that bet there, Dan. That's outstanding there. I like that.
Hey,
what do you see, Trig?
Well, they used five bullpen arms yesterday, and they played the day before. So,
Yep.
In what Dan's basically saying is the
Yep.
Rockies could be tied at some point, fifth inning on.
Yep.
I don't hate that. I don't think that's
I
a
love
bad
it.
call at all, because if the Rockies are going to break through, it's probably going to be against the Phillies pen anyway. So you get
Yep.
plus money for
At
that.
plus
That's
money?
not horrible.
No, that's not.
And you don't
that
even
is not
need
bad
to.
at all.
There's other ways to win that bet. Like, let's say Nola goes 4 2/3. I mean, he's pitching in altitude.
Correct.
Not everyone handles the altitude well. When I was out with CT and we were in Telluride last year, Joe, I was tired going up the stairs, right? Like, some people don't handle the altitude well. So it's like, yeah, I don't hate that. Sharp call from backstage by newbie right there.
I like that. Look at Dan throwing in their first pitch. I'm sure BP will disagree with all of this, but he'll be up in a minute here. So we'll have to grin and bear it there. We take the good with the bad, people. He does have a couple of big plays coming up in Major League Baseball. Also, he's got some thoughts, not just on today's NBA game, but, of course, tomorrow's NBA game. Bryan Power will step up here in a minute. Trig, let's run through a few of these games here coming out of the chat room, and we'll start with our man there in the chat. Yo Mike 23 wanted to know what the hell's going on with the Marlins, man. They handled business last night. Garrett beats Gallen. Now Montgomery is on the mound for him here today in Arizona. And the big question mark again here is, are we laying this kind of number with Montgomery? Like, what are we doing here, Trig?
I mean, this is the argument for why you just don't lay $2 in Major League Baseball, or it's really tough to do. The Diamondbacks could not have asked for a better setup than last night's game. You have Gallen at home, where he has been lights out his entire career. You have the Diamondbacks lineup, who leads the league in hitting against left-handed pitching, against a lefty that has been dealing with injury, has had setbacks with his injury, has gotten called up and gotten hit hard since he's been called up. And what happens? The Marlins go out and win a 3-0 game. I don't know how to, how do you explain that other than that's probably the argument for just not laying $2 ever, because it's still, you still have to play the game. Nothing's automatic. And I would have thought that the Diamondbacks were as automatic of a $2 favorite last night as you could find, and they got shut out. Again, I'm not playing the Marlins here. Sixto Sanchez it's kind of been, I'm surprised he's even back in the big leagues at this point. I don't think he's there. I think the Marlins have better pitchers in Jacksonville, and it's just like the season's that far gone at this point that they're going to develop guys down there more, and just he's kind of up, just taking a beating. So I do think Arizona wins. I don't know. Maybe you take if you like the Phillies, maybe you parlay them into the D-backs, just because it's you're getting a later game, but
yep.
And that's just because, of course, I think Montgomery's been okay. This is not a game I'm going to have $1 on, but I wouldn't be backing the Marlins to do it again. Kind of I guess just a high level, I think I'd be willing to bet against the Rockies or Marlins being able to pull off back-to-back upset wins. So maybe Phillies D-backs parlay by, just kind of because of that, but not a strong opinion there for me. It would be D-backs or pass, and I have no appetite to lay minus 180 with that team.
I agree 100%. I know there were a couple of questions about Ramsey in the chat room. Welcome in. And guys, don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you could. We'd appreciate it. Follow us on Instagram, guys. Always a pleasure to see you. Way to go, yo, it's Mike. But we've got some questions about the Nats here, I believe. Gore pitched pretty damn well yesterday for him. I think he went 7 innings, only gave up 1 run, didn't walk anybody, struck out 7 or 8 guys. The Nats end up beating Seattle yesterday 6-1. Round 2 here. Trig, what do you think we're going to get in this one here today?
Yeah, I'm kicking myself. I liked the Nats yesterday.
I know you did.
So that was another one where I don't think I think Gore was announced a little bit later. I don't know if they were going to maybe plan to, push him off till Saturday, whatever, but whatever. He ended up going, and I was real close to playing them, and I just didn't. And of course, they come out and win 6-1. A backstory there: he's a guy that I've been super high on, like since he was in the minors, and every time I come on these shows or make a best bet on him, I seem to get it wrong. So I've pumped the brakes on backing him at this point, and then of course he comes out and deals last night. It's another scenario, though, where I think you've probably missed your chance to bet the Nats. Like the plus 1.5 is more appealing because you get the free run to work with. And I'm not like overly high on the Mariners. It feels like they win a lot of close games. Like their pitching is the reason that they've been decent this year. So you'd have to think that maybe if the Mariners win, it's by a run. And you've got it covered if you play the plus 1.5. I guess for me, like I don't trust Williams enough. Like the numbers he's put up this year relative to like what his career numbers are much better. So like that tells me like there's probably some regression at some point. And I've always liked Logan Gilbert. He's kind of been my guy as well. So while I don't really want to lay minus 170 with Gilbert on the road, I still think that it's just going to be hard for me to back the Nats after they won last night. So I wish I had more there. It's just I don't want to lay minus 170, but like kind of feel like the Mariners and Gilbert get it done. So it's a tough one for me.
Yeah, I don't. Gilbert's road home splits are scary. All his home runs and walks come on the road. And Trevor Williams, 7-2. The Nats love when this guy pitches.
He's been incredible.
It's crazy.
He's been incredible.
It's unreal.
I really think if you like the Nats, you just take the plus 1.5. You only have to lay a minus 110. You get the run to work with. The Mariners, they win so many close games. They play a lot of close games, right? So like they just, the strength of the Mariners is their pitching. They're 27-25, but go back and see how many of those were tight wins, right? Like I'm looking just at last week. 5-4 win over the Yankees, game they should have lost. 4-3 win over the Orioles. 4-2 win over the Royals. Like, you know what I mean? Like there are some blowouts in there when they were randomly like crushing the ball against the Twins. But there's a lot of go back to the end of April. 3-1 win over the Diamondbacks. 2-1 win over the Braves. 3-2 win over the Braves. 4-3 win over Texas. Like they play in a lot of close games. So I think the bet that probably makes the most sense is Nationals plus 1.5. But I'm just personally not going to bet against Gilbert because I know if I do, he's coming out throwing 6 2/3 a shutout ball. So
I'll give you one more on this, guys, that I did not understand. His K number was 3.5 this morning. It's Seattle. Do you realize that Seattle has had 4 or more strikeouts in only, they only missed that number in 8 of their 52 games this year. They've only struck out less than 4 times in a game. 8 of 52. They're going to strike out here with Trevor Williams. Guy has been an absolute stud here. You also have Trig, whether it be KBO. Of course, you've been crushing it. Again, congrats on the fever last night, dude. You brought it home. You were one of the only guys I had heard actually thought Indiana would be able to pull out the win last night in the WNBA, and they did. Baseball, KBO, WNBA, what do you got locked and loaded here today?
Yeah, so the only thing I've got locked in for today so far is a 5% play in Major League Baseball. I'm 9-2 on my last 11 best bets overall across all sports. I think the extended baseball run is like 10 or 11-4. So it's been going good across the board. 5%ers in Major League Baseball goes this afternoon. WNBA has been awesome to start 6-2 so far on the season. I have not played anything yet today. I have some opinions. It's tough because all these teams that I've kind of played on this week got it done. So it's like, I'll rattle them off quick. I think the Liberty probably win. But I'm not dying to lay 6.5, but they probably win their game. The Sun are a team that I haven't been that impressed with over the course of the looking back now. They played the Fever twice. I think the Mystics they had a hard fought win where they won by 1 in overtime. That was one of my 2 losses this year. I was on the wrong side laying points against the Lynx. Now they have to go on the road and play the Sky today. Like, they haven't covered in a while, which is scary, but that still seems like a pretty inflated line at like 6.5 or 6. The Fever were the team last night. I was on the Fever last night. Ron gave a great breakdown of that game. So if you want to, the breakdown of Fever Aces, go back and watch Ron Cabang's spot.
Yep.
I think the number is probably correct there. I've hit the Mystics twice already this week, Joe. I'm a greedy guy, Joe, but I can't be that greedy. There's no way if I bet the Mystics with the points tonight, there's no way that they're going to cover again. But the Storm are an overrated team this year, in my opinion. So that 8.5 seems big. And then I feel like the Mercury probably bounced back. They kind of I was lucky with the Mystics the other night. I don't think that the Mystics could have easily lost that game by 15. They clawed all the way back to lose by only 3 and cover the number. But the Mercury, huge win over the Aces, is a 14-point dog. They're 3-1. They're at home again. The Wings, kind of just haven't been super impressive in my opinion. It took like a little bit of a run just to cover that first game. They're 1-2. So probably lean Mercury. I don't know if I'll get to the window with any of those, but those are my 5 WNBA opinions for Saturday.
He's crushing it. All right, Trig, locked and loaded today. Major League Baseball, KBO, all throughout the week, guys. And, of course, already off to a hell of a start in the WNBA this season. Visit him over at WagerTalk.com, WT.buzz/AT here. Trig, good luck today here. Crush him on the board. And, Dan, I feel like well, that's it, right? I mean, is there really, is there any, no? Is there any, Bryan Power, that's right. Oh, yeah. I could have sworn that was, probably should have just ended it when I had the chance. All right, Bryan Power. Yeah, that's, that's I was so close. Oh, BP, good Lord. It can't be. Where are the mic problems when you need them? Always a pleasure to see you, BP. Honestly. No, I'm really paid to say that. It's always a pleasure here, BP. We've got Major League Baseball for you today, as well as the NBA. So why don't we, before we get to your MLB game, and you do have a look at this Toronto and Tigers game here coming up. Is that a 1 o'clock start? What time is that game, BP? All right, so let's start there. Yes, let's do that. Let's start with that game there, since it's right off the bat. What are you looking at here with Detroit and Toronto? Boy, Toronto sucks. No lie. What's going on here? Yes. Yes, please do.
That was the Dodgers' James Paxton. Worked out pretty nicely as the Dodgers lost to the Reds. Well, today there's a starter in this game I really want to back, and it's the Tigers' Reese Olson. You talk about a guy due for a win. 2.16 ERA, 1.06 whip. Somehow he's 0-5, Joe. The team is 1-8 in his 9 starts. Last time out, he takes a liner off his hip and had to exit after blacking out. That's never good, but he seems all right. Back on the mound Saturday, and you're talking about a guy who's allowed 2 earned runs or fewer, all but 1 start. And here, this stat will blow your mind. Per Opta, he's the first starter since ERA was introduced. That was all the way back in 1913, oh, by the way, to be 0-4 or worse with a sub-2.25 ERA through 8 starts. So he's due. I think today is the day. You said Toronto sucks, Joe. I kind of concur. They've got big names in the lineup, but they're feast or famine. Last night, 8th time in 15 games, they got held to 3 runs or less. They do not hit a lot of home runs. They're tied for the 5th U.S. in all baseball. Olson's allowed just 1 homer all season. It came last time out. And Barrios for Toronto, okay, his numbers might look good, comparable to Olson, 2.97 ERA, but his expected ERA is 4.87, so negative regression forthcoming. Last 5 starts for Barrios, 7 homers allowed. Tigers have the better bullpen. I will back them in this early start. And as a tribute to Dan behind the scenes, I would sprinkle a little bit on Olsen to record a win. That prop is plus 250. My God, this man is due to record a win. So let's go with it. Plus 250. Olsen to win. Tigers to win. They are due.
Yeah, call me crazy. Berrios doesn't miss a lot of bats either. I think his K prop was around 5.5, maybe. I don't think it was 6.5. I think it was 5.5 here. I don't think he's going to miss a lot of bats in this one either here. And you lean in the over in that game as well. I don't think that's a bad look either, expecting some runs.
Well, the only problem is anytime I endorse the Tigers, their bats don't show up. I just want to count on Olsen to get the job done. I mean, the Tigers, they scored 6 last night, which is good. And I agree, Berrios, the negative regression, but it's how much is there going to be. So I feel more comfortable with the side through the total for sure, Joe.
I mean, he's allowed, 10 homers, 9 homers through 60 innings pitched here. 7 of those 9 home runs coming on the road. I think Berrios could very well be in for quite a long day here. What are you thinking here about, and let's bring them up because I know they brought up in the chat, BP loves the Amish. Yes, and by the way, thank you to those that made us aware that that BP was on mute when we started this segment. The only thing I have to say to that is you're welcome. BP, let's talk about the Yankees if we could here for just a minute before your mic goes on mute again. Talk to me about the Yankees last night. I could not believe how low that number was. 7, I think, is what it closed, the total against the Padres. Rodon has, and listen, I'm a Yankee guy, and nobody has been more frustrating than that guy, his availability. And then when he was available, he got lit up like a Christmas tree. But he's getting better, and he's getting healthier, and he's getting much more comfortable. And boy, oh boy, Darvish, you're 70,000 innings without giving up a run? That didn't work out all that well yesterday. But they bring Dylan Cease to the mound here today. Stroman, he's been keeping the ball in the park and walking less, which is always good here. But he's on the road, not at Yankee Stadium. What are you thinking of this one? 7.5 as a total today.
Yeah, this is tricky because I don't want to bet San Diego at this price. Favorite, I know Dylan Cease is great, and they have the edge. If you're going to bet San Diego, do it first 5. That's what you ought to do. Just try to lay the half run in the first 5 because that's where the edge. If San Diego's to win this game, it's going to be because of the Cease-Stroman matchup. But I absolutely hate this full game price on San Diego. I'm higher than the market on San Diego. I think this is going to be a playoff team. They had atrocious luck in close games last year, Joe, as you know. They had, I believe, the 3rd best run differential in the National League, trailing only the Braves and Dodgers, but they wound up with just a win total in the low 80s. But the Yankees are obviously one of baseball's best teams, and the Padres do not deserve to be favored against them full game, despite the starting pitching matchup being in their favor. So if you like San Diego, lay the half run in the first 5, but they are mispriced for the full game.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I would not want to in any way, shape, or form fade this Yankees lineup right now because they're not missing a whole lot here, and they're remaining healthy, which is always a good thing. I believe DREC49 in Instagram is visiting his fiance's grandparents in Minnesota. So he absolutely needs something to do here today. He'd like to know, should he bet on the Twins or should he fade the Twins? I believe it's Paddock on the mound here today. What do we do with this Twins team who, well, listen, I'd like to think that the Texas Rangers are no longer considered elite because they're not. This lineup is hot ass, and you know it and I know it, BP. So what are we thinking about the Twins here in this one?
Well, I could provide a list of things here to do, perhaps, if he needs in Minnesota. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be a long afternoon, buddy, but we'll get you through it. This is a tough matchup, Minnesota and Texas, because I think the market overvalues both of these teams, Joe. You know,
yes.
let's just take a step back in the AL Central for a minute, okay? Over the last, 10 days, we've seen series between the Twins and the Guardians and the Royals and the Tigers. In both those instances, the Twins and Tigers were priced as the better teams. They're absolutely not better than the Guardians and the Royals. And then you've got the Rangers. You look at a lot of power rating systems, still have them in the top 10. In what world are the Texas Rangers a top 10 team in baseball? They have a negative run differential. They're very lucky to be in the AL West. I know Trig was talking about Seattle in the previous segment. That whole division, not a single team has a positive run differential. That's why Houston's alive, despite its atrocious start. And it's interesting. You look at the total here. I'm trying to make heads. Rangers road games, very high scoring, 10.4 runs per game they average. But Twins home games, very low scoring, 7.5 runs per game. Now, it was more of a Twins typical home game last night with the 3-2 final.
Yep.
I don't know here. This is, to me, the hardest call. I would lean, I guess. I don't know. I would lean to the over. I think maybe there's going to be more runs than we saw last night. 8.5, obviously, it's right under the key number of 9. So if you really want to bet this game, we can hit on some more things to do on a Saturday if you're hanging out with your fiance's grandparents. Yep. But I would go over in this game.
Yeah. I would. Over's not a bad look. Also, Chris Paddock under 17.5 outs is probably not a bad look either. If it's the one thing the Rangers lineup can do, it's they can hit righties pretty well. He did come off. I believe he was outstanding last game against your Guardians there, BP, but he has not gone 6+ in 6 of his 9 starts this year. So if things start to go south, and inevitably they will, because the one thing the Rangers like to do is walk, and Paddock will certainly give them an opportunity to get some free passes. 17.5 outs is a lot for this guy, especially coming off of that unbelievable performance against your Guardians, which, by the way, speaking of, the Guardians getting a lot of love in the chat there against the Angels. You said it yesterday on the morning wager. You and Zeno there, and guys, you can check that out each and every morning. It's up by 10 a.m. You were baffled by this line yesterday with the Angels and the Guardians. Didn't make any sense to you. While the Guardians came out, got all over him, and that was all she wrote. Soriano on the mound, BB on the mound for the Guardians here. It's not a bad price here today for the road team. What are you thinking?
Yeah, the Guardians wound up being my only client play in MLB yesterday. An easy 10-2 win. That one was put to bed pretty early with the back-to-back home runs, Joe. First time this Major League Baseball season that a team hit 3 straight home runs, but back-to-back. The Angels, look, this game is priced more appropriately than yesterday. I said it on the morning wager. I said it on first pitch. It was ridiculous that this game was even money. The Guardians are one of the best teams in baseball. The Angels are one of the worst. And while this is more appropriately priced, and I'm not going to be on the Guardians today, I'll tell you this, the Angels still stink at home, no matter what the price is. Yeah. This is a team 6-17 in their home stadium, 2-14 when priced between +125 and -125. So in those games that are still considered kind of coin flips, they don't win them. And, the bullpen, this was something else I harped on yesterday. The Angels' only chance to steal a game in this series is to have a lead early, because the Guardians have a massive, massive edge when this game gets to the bullpens. And I'm looking at the starting pitching matchup here, Joe, with Bibee and Soriano. It's not a big edge to the Angels, just like last night wasn't a big edge to the Angels with Sandoval. As a matter of fact, I would argue last night they had a better chance with Sandoval against Allen of getting out to an early lead. They did not, but Soriano at home, how has he pitched in 3 starts? Well, the team's lost all 3 of them. 6.55 ERA, 1.54 whip. Those numbers are terrible. Bibee on the road, 1.69 ERA. Oh, by the way, that's in 5 starts, and Cleveland has won all of them. Cleveland's 9-1 with Bibee on the mound. This would be Guardians or pass. Seemingly every edge is to the road team in this one.
Like in the Cleveland or pass here. What about, let me ask you, Trig has
and
been sworn off.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one more thing about Cleveland. I want to talk about, because one of the big things that they're doing better compared to last year's hitting home runs, the Guardians lineup. And a real key to that, because we talked about the back-to-back home runs, Ramirez isn't being intentionally walked nearly as many times as he was last year. I think he was intentionally walked 22 times last year. He's only been intentionally walked twice this year with Naylor hitting behind him. And last night you saw, the proof was in the pudding. So that's something to just if you're watching, make a mental note of with this Guardians offense.
Yeah, well, Sandoval too getting lit up. So what are one last game here that I saw come in? We have absolutely banned Trig from talking about the White Sox ever again, at least for another 2 weeks, because he loves the damn White Sox. But tell me what in the world we're doing here today. The way that game, and I don't know if people saw this last night, but the way that game ended was like Twilight Zone last night with Baltimore. The last couple of innings, it was raining sideways. They couldn't figure out whether they wanted to postpone the game or not, or, bring out the tarp. They let it roll out. And of course, Rauschman comes up with a huge 2-run, 2-out RB double that brings in the 2 runs, making it 6-4, I believe, at the time there. And then in the bottom of the 9th inning, they called like a interference with they had first and second with 2 outs, and then they called interference, and that was how the game ended. It was almost like the umps were like, listen, we ain't getting wet anymore. Hell no, you ain't tying this game up. Like, we're out of here. Strangest thing I've ever seen for a game to end like that last night. So now we get round 2 today here, BP. What are you looking at? Fetty's on the mound. I mean, he gives them the best chance, right? I think the White Sox here of getting it done. What are you thinking about?
Couple things. So you have to wonder about the White Sox psyche right now, because it's actually been back-to-back games where they've lost in controversial fashion. Baltimore's rotation is sort of in shambles right now. Means is down. Kramer is down, or was their weakest starter anyway. He was slated originally to start today. The way I would look at this, it's the way I think I talked about on First Pitch yesterday. I talked about it on Morning Wager, I know 2 days ago, was Baltimore's team total over, because, look, their bats, this is a series they're due to break out. For most of May, their bats have gone curiously solid. I think the Orioles were second in runs per game in April in the American League. They were carried by the pitching in the first half of May, but the bats are starting to wake up. I think it's better to bet Baltimore's team total over. That way you don't have to worry about the White Sox doing any work. Obviously, the White Sox offense can be dreadful. It's been okay in this series, but do we want to count on them a third straight day? I'll count on the Baltimore bats here, because that seems like the one consistent thing you can lean on, because, the Orioles rotation right now, I don't know what to make of it. The bullpen still does have some question marks. I like the Baltimore bats to get it done, so I would bet them over their team total.
Oh, all right. So you like them up and over the team total here. I do, too. It's about time. It's been a rough stretch for them to this point, but they're looking to finally start coming around. All right. So let's talk here NBA quick, BP, before we get you out of here. Last night, far too many people were on Minnesota for my liking.
Yeah.
We talked about it on the NBA tip-off show, and we said, listen, when it comes down to it, I trust the offense of Dallas and Kyrie and Doncic. They are great, Minnesota, but this is uncharted territory for them. And apparently Anthony Edwards has forgotten to score. So that's a bit of a problem. So what does this series look like to you now? Now, it wasn't like Minnesota just played Denver and watched them rattle off 3 against them. So are they done here, do you think? Is this series over?
History is not shining on the T-Wolves, Joe, and they were my first loss in the conference finals. Full disclosure, I had them last night. And like you, I was looking at the line movement late afternoon, and I wanted to, I got them at -5. So I beat the line move, and I wanted to tackle people, because I was, please stop betting Minnesota. You're making me feel worse about this. And then it started out great, and then they just sucked. They just absolutely sucked in the second half. Now, history does not shine on Minnesota in terms of advancing to go to the NBA Finals. Why is that? Well, previous to this, there have been 16 occasions in the conference finals where a team has started with back-to-back road wins. Would you like to guess how many of those 16 have advanced to the NBA Finals, Joe?
How many? 1?
The answer, the answer is 16. All 16 teams that have started out of conference finals with back-to-back road wins, like Dallas, have advanced. So history is not on Minnesota's side. Now, Minnesota, of course, like you mentioned, what they just did to Denver, they took the first 2 games in Denver and then found themselves down 3-2 before ultimately winning the series. I think Minnesota's live in game 3. It's interesting. You look at the line movement, the line shift for tonight's game, Boston and Indiana. Well, you can at least point to the Halliburton injury as a reason for that. There's no injury here. For Minnesota to close -6 in game 2 and now be +3, that seems like an over-adjustment to me. Minnesota does not lose 3 games in a row very often. As a matter of fact, it's only happened once in that last series against Denver. And you look at how they shot the first 2 games, 41.2%, 42.7%, while Dallas shot right around 49% overall in those 2 games. And still the 2 games were close, right? As a matter of fact, Dallas, their last 3 wins, Joe, have been by how many combined points? 5. 5 total points. So they've been winning close. Minnesota was horrible on 2-point attempts last game. You talk about Edwards disappearing. So much for those Michael Jordan comparisons, I suppose. But Minnesota, no matter who was shooting inside the arc, 23 of 54 on 2-point attempts. That get 42% that's horrible. Gobert and Towns should not be on the floor together. I think Finch makes some adjustments. I think Minnesota's live for game 3 to steal it. Dallas has been vulnerable at home. Dallas is it's a difficult team for me to figure out. I will concede that because their power rating should be better than what I have it at because they're just simply a much different team post-trade deadline. I guess we got to throw out all the priors to that because they looked the part of an NBA finalist, but I just think the odds have moved too much for game 3, and I think live.
Listen, the bottom line to me is Edwards looks like a 22-year-old. It's great that you propped him up to be Michael Jordan, guys, but he's 22 years old. And if that turnover with 13 seconds, trying to hit Nas right instead of taking, doesn't tell you everything you need to know. And like you said, bottom line is Minnesota has had problems closing games out all year long. All year long, they've had trouble doing that. And when you get Doncic and Kyrie playing at this point, they're like, hey, you lead. You want to lead by 18? Go ahead. You want to lead by 12? Enjoy yourself. Because I can't think of a duo I'm happy to give you my money than watching Doncic and Kyrie at the end of a game with a chance to win it. I'd bet them every time before I bet Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, or anybody else on this team. By the way, Cat sat his ass on the bench for most of that second half because Naz Reid was playing him under the table. So, sorry. Sorry, Cat. MIA. Glad we faded them in that one for sure. But tonight.
Edwards and Cat were what? Like a combined 9 for 23 or something terrible. Like that last game? Yeah. It was horrible. I mean, I don't know. I think there's going to be some improvement there. I mean, collectively from Minnesota, which is why I kind of think they're live. And yes, I agree that in terms league-wide, Joe, there's probably not – forget about the remaining teams. Just in the entire league, there's probably not a better 1-2 than Doncic and Kyrie. But I will point out Dallas – I mentioned their last 3 wins have been by a total of 5 points. They've trailed by 15 plus in 2 of them. So, I mean, more power to you if you could keep doing it. But typically the blueprint says that's kind of a hard way to win.
Yeah, no, it is. But again, keeping games close. How many guys are going to throw at Doncic? You don't have enough. And it doesn't matter who you throw. Defensive player of the year and a 3 to win it right over. How's that working out for you, Gobert?
Yeah, and I saw on the post game I was listening, Barkley was saying, and it was a point well taken, that, much like Minnesota matched up great with Denver, they don't match up so great with Dallas and the 3-point, because the big guys can't play down low, whereas it's funny, Denver would have probably been a much better matchup for Dallas, or a worse matchup if you're the Mavericks. So, styles make fights, and we got what we got, so to speak.
All right, tonight, Celtics Pacers. Still no word on Halliburton there, but 7 I'm seeing, 222.5, somewhere in that ballpark there. Are you looking to back aside a total? What are you looking to do in this matchup here tonight?
Are you perplexed about the total? Like how it's being bet?
Yes.
I mean, that's got to be sharp money, right? And I've watched every minute of this series, much like you have, and I would not feel good. That would not be a great viewing experience, I don't think, to have the under. I respect the line move. You always have to respect the sharp money, but man, I mean, both teams, I think even without Halliburton, Indiana could score here, Joe. They did. The games that he missed, they were, I think, 6-4 in those 10 games he missed with the same injury, and they were still putting points up. Boston's rim protection is still an issue. I mean, and Indiana was winning games in round 1 against Milwaukee with Halliburton not playing well. I kind of think this is an over-adjustment, too, from the lines makers. I get that they sort of had to do it because there's the uncertainty, but considering Indiana closed plus 8.5 in game 2 at Boston, for this line to have touched 7.5, I'm kind of scratching my head on that one as well, much like I'm scratching my head with the way the total has moved, because I think both these teams can score, and I think Indiana is more than capable of hanging with Boston. Obviously, Indiana, they've not lost at home, and Boston, we all say it, they typically give one away every series, so you got to think if they're giving one away in this series, it's going to be tonight.
Plus 2.5, plus 3 is what the Pacers are getting in the first half. Yeah, you're going to get a push. If Halliburton doesn't play tonight, and I don't think it sucks. They're not as good, but they have more talent at the guard position. They can throw Nembhard out there. They have their quarterbacks. They can do that. Obviously, somebody's going to have to make up the 14 to 16 points that you won't have from him per game. But it is doable, and I think at home, down 2-0, backs against the wall, Indiana early is not a bad look here on this one at all there. Go ahead, BP.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's only 2.5, 3, right? Because odds makers are on to that angle. That's always been a popular angle with bettors, backing a team in the first half in their first home game back down 0-2. So the odds makers are on to that. You're not getting a great number there. But if that's your handicap, you're right. If you're kind of just looking at a game script, it is difficult, I think, to envision, and I don't know if you agree or not, for Indiana to fall down early and then get back into it late. Right? If they're to steal this game, it's going to be with a great start. So I found it interesting that first half number that it was only 2.5, 3, based on what the full game line is here.
Yeah, Robert brings up a good point. Robert Bruce, shout out in the chat. Celtics have done really good with an 8-man rotation there. They were much better, obviously, in the last game because that game was over after the second quarter there when Indiana somehow they went 7 minutes without scoring a bucket. We're only down 6 at the break, which is completely mind-blowing. But as far as the half goes, take your 2.5. I don't want it. It's Indiana money line. For me there, if you're going to go that route. Just Indiana has got to be there early and often. I think you will. If Halliburton doesn't go, I think you will get that big push there. I mean, Siakam can only do so much. They did that with the Knicks, don't forget. Knicks kind of pushed them around, beat them up a little bit there for a couple of games. They came home, and they cleaned up an awful lot. This is clearly a different team at home than they are on the road here. So, I'll go Pacers early, and you know me with the team totals. One of these teams, if not both, is going over their team totals here today, BP.
You and I, when we broke down game 2 on the NBA tip-off show, said whichever team you like in this game, bet them over the team total. Well, they both went over their team total. I would say the exact same thing. You mentioned Siakam. I do have a free play up on my page. I like him over PRA, regardless of Halliburton plays, because I don't think Halliburton is going to affect. Halliburton's not going to affect his rebounding much. Now, if Halliburton doesn't play, it's great because I think Siakam can do a lot of damage in the assist market. But I think Siakam's in line for a big game. You mentioned the Knicks series. Pacers were in this exact same spot, Joe, coming back home down 0-2. Now the Celtics are obviously much better than the Knicks, but whether or not Halliburton plays, we touched on this in our game 2 chat. The one edge the Pacers have over the Celtics is depth. This is a deep team with multiple contributors. So I do believe they would be able to overcome Halliburton's absence. I don't think it's it's not great if he doesn't play, but you're going to be able to get a good number because I would expect the market's going to react wildly when that news comes out. So I would just stay tuned. Keep an eye on the WagerTalk odds screen. You're going to get, if Halliburton's announced out, you're obviously going to be able to get a better number than +7.
Yeah, I agree. And this series is both series really have been some great opportunities to jump in live and look for middles if you're taking a position early. If you guys are taking the points with the dogs, certainly opportunities to jump in. I mean, those that were looking at Dallas last night, boy, there was opportunities to jump in that game at some absolutely ridiculous numbers. So good opportunity. And even if you wanted to wait for Minnesota last night, you had opportunities to jump in there at a much better thing. The breaks certainly went Dallas's way in game 2. Not so much for Indiana. Can Indiana get this to 2-1 right now? A lot of people calling for the sweep. I still think there's a game here, or maybe even 2, in which Boston shits the bed, which they have been known to do here.
Yeah,
but
and no one thought they were going to sweep. No one thought they were going to sweep before. Remember, everyone's like, don't bet the sweep. As a matter of fact, on the morning wager, we talked about Pacers +2, bet Pacers +2.5 in the series, and Boston to win exactly in 5, because then the only bad scenario was a Boston sweep, and Zeno and I didn't like that. And so, I think Indiana at home, considering how good they've been, I think they can absolutely take one of these next 2 games. I agree. For sure.
Yep, I agree here. John Peterson in the chat likes Indy, says he's only averaging about 11 points a game. So that being Halliburton in the playoffs here. So I'm with you. They're home. Take the team total over. Expect them to do their thing. I don't hate that look at all here. Shout out to Michael in the house wanting to know where are all the Wolves fans that were eating horse meat last night. Apparently didn't work out all that well there on the NBA Tip-Off show there. First half over, I believe Indiana scored 24 in 6 minutes. Yes, absolutely, Michael. We are on the same page with that. BP, lock loaded over at WagerTalk.com. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, so right now there's 2 packages up on my page. One, you get both Game 3 winners in the NBA playoffs. I'm on a 31-14 NBA run, despite last night's tough loss. Going back to early April, I'm 2-0 in the Pacers-Celtics series. I was 3-0 in the conference finals before last night. So we've seen it really well for a very long stretch in the NBA, Joe. Going back nearly 365 days, we're up almost 75 units going back to last year's finals. So you get both Game 3 winners for $29. You can also, soccer, I'm number 1 the last 30 days at WagerTalk, closing that season strong, 14-4-1 run on the pitch. I've got 2 plays locked and loaded in Serie A, Joe. Big relegation battle. Empoli, Udinese, Frosinone, Raineri. Somebody's getting relegated. That's a lot of Italy for you, right?
Nice.
So that's your people. Somebody's getting relegated, get sent down to Serie B. So I've got 2 plays tomorrow over in Italy that you can check out. $29 for the pack.
What'd you say, Areola? What? I
don't think that's a team. I don't think. I'll have to check.
Are you sure?
No.
I dated a chick named Areola.
As soccer fans know, there is a team named Brest in Ligue 1 over in France. So you can have fun with that.
Yes, I can. Just rolling it one more time here. Aaron, Yankees, question mark. If you, Aaron, want to fade that lineup now, even against Dylan Cease, who, by the way, the Yankees are very familiar with him, playing from the White Sox, so it's not like he's going to take them by surprise. Good luck there. Also, Halliburton, I wanted to make sure. What about Holiday? They have him listed as questionable in the Celtics. CJ, I'll tell you this. He's been questionable now for the last couple of games. I don't see any reason not to think he's not playing in this game here. Halliburton is the big question mark there. Big Daddy, always a pleasure. Titan CT. Andres, what's going on, man? Desmond Castro in the house here. You guys, Ray, already playing the ponies. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. Shout out to the poor SOB at his his girlfriend's grandparents' house in Minnesota, looking for things to do here. That's why they have packaged goods in Minnesota, my friend. It's exactly why they have packaged goods in Minnesota.
I have to address something,
Go
Joe.
ahead.
I saw a commenter talk about the Amish. You will not believe this. I am not making this up. I wish I was making this up. Right before I came on the air, there were Amish people in my driveway buying a horse cart for my wife. I am not lying. That's a real thing that happened.
They were doing drug deals, BP. Don't lie to the people.
No, they were not. They were buying a horse cart. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
That's what they call it.
What are you selling them? Like, you selling them seeds and stems? Like, what are you selling them, BP? You should be shot. You should absolutely be shot. You go.
By the way,
I know
it's never too early for NFL. It's never too early for NFL content, but doesn't Aaron Rodgers look like a guy who would sell you dirt weed at Coachella now? What's up with that look? Man?
Yes.
I saw him at Coachella
He's
this
looked
year.
like
He
that
sold
for a
it.
while.
He looked like that for a while, but I was watching him. I was like, I'm like, this is a guy who's going to sell you brown weed.
Hey, he's still going to light up the Browns, though, so settle down there, you Cleveland homer. All right, BP, always a pleasure. Unfortunately, we did get your mic to work there, and people had to suffer through this last 30 minutes. But always a pleasure here, guys. Once again, do us a favor if you could, though. Hit that thumbs up. We would certainly appreciate that. Follow us on Instagram, of course, X in the house here, as well as Facebook, YouTube Shorts, Robert, John Peterson, Roger Long. Appreciate you guys. As always, make sure you get ready for another monster week, and I mean monster week coming up here in the world of sports, and we've got you covered with all the content you need to make it extremely profitable. I can't believe we're heading into June, but that's where we are, guys. Until we see you again on Monday, big shout out, big thanks, guys, on behalf of Trig, on behalf of Carmine, on behalf of RC, Ronald Cabang, and yes, even Mr. Amish Bryan Power, Dan behind the scenes. Don't forget Nola and his Areolas, was it, Dan? Is that the name of the band? No, Nola and no win today at plus money against Colorado. Guys, best of luck. Enjoy it. We'll see you again on Monday. Good luck.